In this video, we're going to tell you about how you can find schools here as a foreigner, what options there are, what kind of questions that we would ask or think about when we visit a school, and how you can find the perfect match for your kids.
Yeah, and I would say, let's caveat this by saying it's a very individual choice. We certainly wouldn't be offering anyone advice on what's best for their own child. Every child has different needs, as we know, different learning styles. So this is just to talk a bit about our experience and how we found a school that we're extremely happy with and our children absolutely love it. And yeah, let's go.
Why are you
talking hold on. Why are you talking so much? Why has this now become your video?
Because it's my channel, okay?
It's boring.
I thought you could take
I'm literally falling asleep. And people don't want to hear you talk. I don't know how you haven't learned that.
Okay, I'll shut up and let you talk.
Just watch the expert do it. So one thing you won't be short of here in Portugal is a choice of schools. There are a plethora of options here. Whether you want an international school, whether you want a private school, a private Portuguese school, and there are obviously public options. And there are many good public options also in many different areas across Portugal. With the international side of things, that can be quite costly, especially in Lisbon and in Porto, the main areas where there are a large population of foreigners. Obviously, that's where the schools are situated. Now, they are quite pricey. You will be able to find an extensive list online. We will leave a link in the description box where you can start sort of looking at these. But within that, there are a number of specialist options. So, for example, German, Swedish, French schools, there are bilingual schools. So you are really not short of choice. And it's, as I said at the beginning, you know, it's a very individual thing what you end up going for. We ended up going for a Portuguese private option, mainly because we knew we wanted to be here longer term. Our children are native in English, and also they know some Danish. And we really wanted for them to fully integrate within the Portuguese culture, learn the language, and they have really excelled with that in the short time we've been here. So we think that's definitely best if you're planning to be here over the long term.
In our previous experience with international schools, the one thing that we have become to realize is that because it's also very costly. It quickly becomes something that is mattering more about the money they can make rather than the kids' individual journey. And that's what we have learned to really appreciate about the private Portuguese schools, that they are very humble, very hardworking, and really, really focused on the child first. Portugal is luckily a country that's very family focused, and that you can see all the way out to the schools, at least the one we've come across. So that's something that we really value. In this video, we're not going to go super deep into public schools because, first of all, we just don't have the experience with it. We happen to find a really good Portuguese private schools, and then our search sort of stuck there. So let's go through what the journey was for us to go from another country into Portugal and find the schools.
Yeah. Okay.
You tell.
So the search for school started way before we got to Portugal. So we had a rough idea of the areas we thought we wanted to live. It changed later when we got here, but because it was in the middle of a pandemic, we couldn't physically get here to meet with schools. Mm-hmm. So we set up video calls with the schools we thought we were interested in. Incidentally, we didn't end up going for any of those ones, but it's important if you are thinking about relocating that, you know, you do all your homework, if you like, up front. So we had video calls. We got a feel for the schools. We have a laundry list of questions that we use as qualifying questions to decide whether we actually want to go and visit them. And that way we had a rough idea of the standard, the quality, and we didn't narrow it down at first. We didn't come here with the expectation that we're going to choose this specific type of school. We were quite open and flexible.
Yeah.
So
and we just gained data. So we just asked all the questions, try to get a feel for it, try to see their approach, how they were looking at kids and like their offerings.
Yeah.
And some of them we didn't even get that far with because there's a long waiting list. So it's just a question about like trying and get a feel for it.
Yeah. Definitely understanding what their values are, their ethos, their learning methods. Another thing I get quite interested in is, what happens to the graduates of the school. What are their competencies in different areas? What do they typically go on and do? And I know our children are very young, but it just gives us a feel for the overall school and the level of success they have, making sure that they have a well-rounded education and think of the whole child rather than just one aspect. And we didn't want a school that was solely focused on academia, because we want our children, as I've mentioned, to be sort of fully well-rounded and have the social and emotional skills, also be strong on the academic side, but be respectful of other human beings. We have a list of other values that were really important to us, and to make sure that they were nurtured in the right way, and they felt that they felt positive towards a learning environment, and they wanted to get up and felt motivated to get to school every day. So,
and of course this is super individual. This literally is down to what you're comfortable with, how you want to raise your kids. But that's just our values and what we are trying to find something that was aligned to.
Yeah, we literally looked at. We looked at international schools, British schools. We looked at a forest school. So, and then we looked at. We actually did look at. We looked at a couple of public options as well. But the thing was, our son's age at the time, he didn't quite qualify for that. Yeah. And then. Is there anything I missed? We looked at a Swedish school.
So we just try to get into how we found these schools, because as you learned, that they don't always they might pick up the phone, but it might be in Portuguese only. And they might not always get back on emails, all of them. So how did we manage to do that? So we had a different experiences with different types of schools. So I think we ruled out pretty quickly that the international option just wasn't for us. And that's not to say it isn't a good option, but we just felt for our kids we were looking for something different. And as we plan to be here long term, we thought it's best to go with the Portuguese option. And also our eldest son sort of said that's kind of what he wanted to do, and we did give him a choice. Well, we literally asked him, and we asked him, do you want to go to an English-speaking school, as we call the international, or do you want to go to a Portuguese school? And he had already made up his mind. He wanted to go to a Portuguese school and learn the language, and had such a great appetite for it, which of course. And also because of their young age, we were very up for letting them try to have a go at that. Yeah,
exactly. And one thing that we really enjoyed about this process is the fact that once we had a couple of schools in mind that we liked, we contacted the schools and we set up a day for our eldest to go along and experience the school in real life, which I think is so important. So in that situation, he went along to the school and, had a whole day of learning and playing and interacting with the children and having lunch and snacks and having that whole experience, which I think is so important, and it gives you a really different perspective of what the school has to offer and how they, their approach to learning. And I think, of course you can't make a decision just on that, because they put their best foot forward, because they want your child to come to the school. But, we definitely got a good impression that way.
So we just try to go through what you can do when the school doesn't speak English, like when the reception doesn't speak English.
Yeah, go ahead.
So what we learned is that in many of these schools, they won't have like reception staff. Maybe like a head of admission might not even be speaking English, because you might be moving to an area like we did with not many expats, so they're not used to it. But the good thing about these schools is they always have an English teacher, and that's like your saving.
Yeah.
So that also means that you need to be very humble in that they are not used to dealing with people that necessarily need the translation. So you need to let them know. So when you contact them, if they don't respond on email, or if you can't get someone who speaks English on the phone, then maybe try to send them a message through their Facebook page, I think like we did, or find a mobile number, any number that starts with a 9 as a mobile number. Try to WhatsApp them. Yeah. In Portuguese with Google Translate, and then just let them know that you don't speak Portuguese, because then they know that they need to set up a meeting where you then can meet the relevant people, but then they include the English teacher, so that can help translate for you. So many of these schools are very willing in helping you and welcoming your kids, but they just need to know what it is you need from them. And that is a very good way of trying to settle in, I think.
Definitely. And another thing to say is that often the websites don't give you much information. They're not the kind of modern, all singing, all dancing, bells and whistles websites.
They can be they're not very impressive, because they put their energy in the schools and not in their promotion material necessarily.
And a lot of these schools, to be honest, they promote themselves because they are so good. So often when you get into an area, people will tell you, oh, there are really good schools in this area. You know, there's a real pride about it. So often they don't need to do heavy marketing and have fancy websites. So we don't mind that.
No. So don't write off a school just because of the website.
Yeah.
That's one thing we've learned.
Yeah, for sure.
For example, you can go to the Facebook page, look at the pictures they've posted, and just like see if there's other things that gives you hints if you can't go out and visit them straight away, and that will give you a good impression of what they're passionate about, their facilities, and what kind of school it is and stuff like that.
And here we find, certainly compared to Spain and the UK, that the facilities in some of the private schools are more modest, and we quite like that. We quite like that. You know, we have experienced schools in the past that are, on paper, I mean, they have absolutely everything, and they're Apple distinguished, and they're all very fancy. But when it comes down to it, that's all it is. Yeah. It's just good marketing, and that's not what you want from a school, at least not us. So
and some schools nearly have the Olympic stadium, and in reality don't really use it.
Yeah.
So sometimes they just have a really, really good sales package, and the better the sales package is, the less you should trust them after our experience.
Yeah,
But just be critical. Look at what they produce. Look at how the other kids are behaving, how their happiness, their energy. And it can be really, really difficult, especially during COVID, because you can't necessarily get into that much of the school.
Yeah.
So you have to do a lot of trusting, a lot of looking through the windows with them, and maybe let one of the teachers go through the school and give your kids a tour, just to try to get a feel for it, and look very much at your kids and how they're behaving with the school. If they're excited about it, their energy. It's very good things to get a feel for if they will thrive and if we're up for it.
Definitely.
So let's try to talk a bit about what made us choose the exact school we chose.
Yeah. So actually, this is funny because on the day that we had our first meeting with this school, we actually had 3 appointments, and I think this was our second appointment. And after this appointment, we decided that we weren't going to go to the third, because it was just like love at first sight for us with this school. The way they received us, I mean, so humbly, the way they interacted with our children, and they took great pride in making sure they felt comfortable, showing them around the school, introducing them to other English-speaking children in the school so they felt comfortable, showing them the facilities.
And it was literally also just a feeling, like in the first meeting, it just felt like we were comfortable just leaving them there.
Yeah.
They were in good company, you could say, because they were comfortable, and they then showed our biggest son some of the facilities that he would be using, and he was super excited.
Yeah.
So again, it's very much an energy.
Yeah.
That you're trying to read from that.
Yeah, we got such warmth from them. It was the English teacher, the head of the school, and also the potential class teachers for our children. And the meeting was, was great. They were very understanding, very accommodating. They had understood that, our children didn't speak the language. They would perhaps need a little bit more assistance in understanding things. And a couple of them were a bit shy to speak English. But now it's like...
well, let's just try to do that in a different way. Let's try to give them a status. So we've been here nearly a year, almost a school year. What do you think? Our biggest one, is almost 7 years old. How do you think he have managed to learn the language?
I mean, he is excellent, and everyone who interacts with him, every person who interacts with him in Portuguese, say that he speaks Portuguese very well. So we are so proud of him.
Okay. Let's get some real facts on. How are we using him in the weekend on our weekend trips?
Well, he's put it this way: he's better than us, so he helps us with translations. Mm-hmm. And I'm not proud to say that, but
he will also help help us ordering in a restaurant and a pasteleria. He
great.
takes pride in trying to help us translate and teaching us words.
Yeah.
One thing that I've seen, at least from Facebook, that many parents have the concern on is, will my kids be able to build a social circle?
Yes.
Even when they don't speak the language, because as we saw here with our kids, their classmates can't speak English.
Well, on the whole, most of them don't. However, we were quite lucky in that there was at least a couple of his classmates, our oldest son's classmates, who actually could speak English. So that helped. And but in terms of worries about integration, anything those fears were alleviated very quickly because they made such an effort to make him feel integrated and welcome. The teacher or teachers would spend extra time with him, making sure he understood what he needed to do, made sure he was comfortable with all the lessons, and then he had his little friend helping him with anything that he didn't understand too, and the English teacher was also a key part of that. So, all in all, he was the key thing for us was finding the right supportive and nurturing environment that would take into account the fact that Portuguese is not his first language. He doesn't speak Portuguese, and it's they would have to make some allowances for that, which they've done. But we're proud to say that none of that is needed anymore. He understands everything, and he communicates solely in Portuguese at school. So it's amazing.
Absolutely. So the good thing about that, when you come to Portugal, there's a bunch of Facebook groups, and the easiest thing there is just to go in and say, what schools can you recommend?
Yeah.
And that can be great. Don't get me wrong. That have helped us a bunch with different things. But schools is very, very individual, and it's also down to availability, what ethos you have about how to raise your kids, what's important for you. So again, getting recommendations from that is not always just the answer. So that's why you really need to when you go and see a school, you need to assess it properly. And we have a bunch of questions for that.
Yeah, so we have a list, I mentioned before, a laundry list of questions that we normally ask the school, and we'll put those in the description box just to help inspire you. And I'm sure you have your own list of things that are important to you, but you might find one or two questions on there that you can add to your own list. So yeah, if you find it useful, that's great.
These questions were not like an interrogation. It's not like a specific number of questions that we must go through in that order. It's just sort of like an inspiration, and the way we use it is we go with the flow. But towards the end of the meeting, we then pull up the list and just like tick off and see, okay, we've covered that, we've covered that, we've covered that. And it starts a healthy conversation with those things that we have forgotten, because they then get to present whatever we have concerns about or whatever we're interested to know about, and then see how they respond to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And in our experience, I mean, we looked at multiple different areas. We for schools, we looked at Mafra. You know, we came out away from Lisbon, so Mafra was an area that had been recommended, and there's some great schools there. We also considered Sintra and Cascais, that we know that there's schools there, and then we a bit further afield towards bit further afield on the Silver Coast, we also looked at a couple of schools there. And you might be asking, well, where do you start with trying to find a list of all the private schools in Portugal? There is a table with schools on it, which we will include in the description box, alongside the list of questions that we use. The other thing that you can do, which is what we did, is search private school in Portuguese and then the area you're interested in. But again, we'll have more information about that in the description box and any other information that you might find useful.
We hope this really helped you guys. Thanks a lot for watching this video.
Thanks. See you in the next one.
See you in the next one.